if I were to give advice to someone else that was considering stepping out there and being more entrepreneurial, to just take a chance, give it a shot.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. My name is Nancy Moore, and I am the host of this weekly podcast that provides career and creative inspiration to help you build a passionate and purpose-filled life. You'll hear from guests that will help you tap into your creative potential, pursue a career with passion, and build on your biggest and best resource, yourself. I'm excited to have you join this conversation. I'm so happy you're here. Let's get started. In this episode, you'll hear from Jennie Miller, a creative entrepreneur who spent over 20 years in the corporate world before she turned her side hustle into a full-time dream job. As the founder of Graceful Bloom's Flower Truck, she shares what makes her business unique and the umbrella of services she offers to her clients, including wedding planning. During our visit, you'll also hear how she loves change and embraces it in her business, and also some advice and words of encouragement for those thinking about taking the entrepreneurial challenge, no matter what age you are. Okay, the Conversations with Passion and Purpose live podcast event is only a few weeks away. The next one is Friday, November 8th, and there are still a few tickets left. My guest will be Carissa Miller, founder and CEO of Carissa Miller Design Co. In only 8 years, Carissa has successfully created and scaled a multi-million-dollar interior design business using the power of social media. Although she doesn't have any formal training in this area, that didn't stop her. To give you an idea of her talent, she has been nominated for HGTV's Designer of the Year 3 times, and her work has been featured in national publications. If you have a dream in your heart and want to take action, this event is for you. She will share the details of building her business and encourage women to push through the fear and do it scared. You can purchase tickets directly through my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com. If you're in the Tulsa area, I would love to see you there. Okay, Jennie, I am so happy to have you on the podcast. I was so appreciative of you being a sponsor at my first event, Conversations with Passion and Purpose. I had met you prior to that, seen your work, and you are so talented, but it was such a special touch to have your flowers at that first event. And I am so happy to be talking to you today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love doing it. It was a lot of fun.
Good. Yeah. Well, thank you. So you have a really interesting background. We're going to talk about your floral business. You are the owner of Graceful Bloom's Flower Truck.
Yes.
And you do a lot of different things with flowers, and we're going to get into that. But if you just start off by kind of sharing a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we're going to get into the floral part.
Sure. I would love to. So basically, I was in the corporate world for 25 years. So I've always loved all things creative. And so after college, I immediately kind of got into a sales and marketing role and worked in architectural design sales for years. So my first job in that field was with Knoll, which is a commercial office manufacturer, but they have a really amazing design background and are very focused on that. So I got a lot of influence through that company and worked there for 5 years. And then my stepdad is actually an architect, and I worked for him for 10. So while I was there, I did marketing and also some design, which I always have had a passion for, but it's not something I got a degree in. So I've always loved all things creativity. And after I had children, I went back to working for another company that had more flexibility. So for years, I've covered the state of Oklahoma as an architectural sales rep, and my customers were designers and architects. So I did that for 25 years, but I started my floral business about 6 years ago while I was still working in that business. So I worked full-time in that business and did my flower business in the beginning. And I did that overlap for about 5 years. So I actually kind of quit or retired from my corporate job last March, I believe, or April. So, and then went full time with my floral business. So,
okay. Now, I didn't realize that you were working full time prior to that, for that long. Did you always have the idea of making it a full-time job, or, it started as kind of a side hustle, but was it on your heart to make that full-time?
Honestly, I think that it was a dream to do that, but I didn't think it would ever maybe fully happen. So when I started having this idea to do a floral business, my older son was about, I want to say he was in the neighborhood of about 10, and he and I would talk about it because he's pretty creative. And I kind of drug him in because I wanted him to learn to start a business at a young age and help me like in the beginning stages. So I kind of drug him along with me, and it was such just a random dream and idea that I think in the beginning I never really thought it would be full time because, in the job that I did corporately, I had invested so much time and, my job provided insurance for my family. My husband works full time too, but he has always been in a business where they didn't offer benefits. So I provided so many of those type of things that I thought, I'll probably never really get to do this full time. But I just built it in a way that it ended up working out that I kind of could go full time. And my husband has just escalated in his career where it's allowed me to do that. So it's been pretty amazing. My job was always somewhat flexible, but I love now, though, that I get to truly invest a lot of time in my family. But I also work hard, but it's on my time versus, an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday type situation.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about just the floral design, because you don't have a background in floral design, but you are obviously very talented with it. And we'll talk later about you even lead classes, you've done weddings, it runs the gamut. But how did you get into the floral design? Like, how did that become your side hustle?
So, I've always loved flowers. I love all things nature, but flowers, especially. And I think that, in the design world, so many things come into play: color, texture, combination of different textures and balance and things like that. And so I always loved all those things about design. And I think those easily transfer over to flowers. So I think that if you have a knack for color and balance and texture and things like that, I think that it makes the floral design a lot easier. So those are the things that I try to talk about and teach whenever I do workshops for people who, if you're not that right, the creative brain, that kind of blows people's minds. But whenever you point those things out, it kind of breaks it down to more of a methodical, type scenario, and that helps people learn how to arrange in a different way if you're not a creative person.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So I don't know if I shared, but when I was in college, actually high school and college, I worked for a place in Stillwater called Colonial Florist.
Okay.
And I really was not that talented as a floral designer. So they would have me when it was Valentine's Day or, Mother's Day, the big holidays. It was something called FTD.
Yes.
And so whenever all of these orders came in from all over through this company FTD, we would have assembly lines, and I would stick like 3 carnations, one,
Yes.
and so I'd stick them in there. But I loved working with the flowers, but I was just never asked to, get to do that. So I love that you're working with your hands, that you're getting to work with nature and, and the flowers. So if you'll share a little bit about how you've built your business, because I feel like you scaled it fairly quickly in a short amount of time.
Right. So it's really interesting, as we grow older, we figure out that things evolve in a way that you can't predict, and so I think I just jumped in with both feet, and the way it started and what I saw in my mind as the future of my business has really evolved over time, as things do. But I don't think I anticipated exactly where it was going to go. So when I started out, it was more focused on my flower truck. So I have a 1971 VW bus, and I use it at a lot of events where I set, it's set up for flowers on the inside. makes a great photo prop. So that was a whole story in itself, finding the bus. It was so meant to be. But in the beginning, my business was very much based on that. There were a few other flower truck companies in the United States at the time that I found on social media, and I thought, wow, what a cool business. But there was nothing here like that, or even in Dallas and some of the bigger cities around us. So I started with that and did a lot of events with that, as far as like parties, bridal showers, where people could kind of build their own bouquet. But as I did that in the beginning, I also started a subscription business because I knew I needed something that was consistent. So I provide wrapped bouquet subscriptions on a weekly, biweekly, monthly basis. And those are the same. I'll have people buy an annual subscription or 3-month, whatever. A lot of time it's as a gift. So that's kind of my in the background consistent business. And then beyond that, I also do traditional floristry and have my Volkswagen bus that I take out on some events where people want it. But it's really evolved now into, I've always loved events and planning events. And so it's kind of evolved into where I do a lot of nonprofit events, whether I just do the floral part or I help with the planning. And I do a lot of weddings now too. And weddings, it depends. Sometimes I do just the flowers, and sometimes I do the planning and the flowers. Sometimes just the planning. It kind of depends on the size of wedding and what their wants and needs are. So it's really evolved into a lot of different things, but I've always loved change. So it makes me happy to be able to do something different every day. I get bored easily, so it's nice to have change in my business.
Well, I get bored easily too. And that's why part of the reason why I have so many irons in the fire,
Yes.
doing different things. I did not realize that you also helped with the wedding planning.
Yes, I do tons of wedding planning. So it's fun, and I've always planned events. I do a lot for both of my boys' schools for fundraising. But the wedding planning part, I kind of started in the beginning of my business doing a few here and there. But just this last year, I kind of overdid it, but planned like probably 10 weddings that were just in the spring this year. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot, but I really enjoy it. And I love to kind of help prepare a vision with someone and help them kind of see it through to the end.
That's so neat. So now what would you say would be the favorite part of your business?
I have to say, and that's evolved as I've figured out how my personality falls into this business. I've always loved people and the interaction with people. And I think that's probably what I love the most about the business, especially on the event side. Whenever you get to actually physically work with somebody, whether it's just on flowers or workshops, I love that part of workshops, that it's interaction with people. And, you can't predict people. You're always going to have some kind of fun response. And, when it comes to flowers, it's usually a joyful response, which I love. It's positive. You don't have to worry and anticipate negative responses. So it's always a positive. People love flowers. And even just delivering flowers to people, it's always joyful and pretty much a blessing. So that's kind of fun to watch too.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so fun. So I do want to ask you what is challenging in your business. And I'm fearful that you might say people who text you last minute for flower orders, because I have definitely done that.
No,
I've
not
been
at
guilty of doing that. But what would you say would be challenging then?
So definitely for me, the challenging part is the back end part of the business. So I don't love like all the paperwork and the filing taxes and maintaining a website. Those are the things that are not my personality. I love the people part and the creative part, but I don't love all the back end part, So that's I have to force myself to sit down and do those things.
Okay. Right. Yeah. You do have such an eye for design, and your social media is just beautifully done.
Thank you.
And now I see why, with the background in design. And it's funny, I'll just tell my listeners, I didn't know you had that 25 years in corporate. So how would you compare the corporate side to what you're doing now, the entrepreneur side? Because that is more steady. Like you said, you had benefits, you knew your salary. There's always pros and cons to both, but if you'll compare those a little bit.
Sure. So I feel like, I wish if I were talking to my younger self, I would say to jump out there and try it earlier. I wish I would have had the guts to give that a go when I was younger. But, the financial part, whenever you've always worked full time, there's always that pressure to provide financially a certain amount of money and that sort of thing. And it takes time to grow a business to that. So when I started, it's just me, and it's still just me. I have a lot of people that help me. It's more of a contract basis. So I do a lot of the work myself, which I don't mind. We'll see where that leads in the future. But with the corporate side, I feel like, in the corporate world, I enjoyed it and I loved the relationships I built because I worked with the same designers for a really long time, and got to know them well. They became friends. So that part I loved, but there wasn't much creative part to it. I mean, when I worked for my stepdad, I did do some design and I loved that. But it was more of an in-office type situation, and I'm not great at sitting in an office behind a desk and a computer. That's just not me. I need to be out and around people and out in nature. And so I think everything about owning my own business, minus the back end work, everything has been wonderful and so much better. And I still some days go, gosh, I want to remind myself of how lucky I am that I don't have to go to an office or answer to anybody, travel for business. I always dreaded business travel because I don't love to be away from my family like that. And when I was young, before I had kids, it was fine. It was an opportunity to see places I wouldn't normally travel to. But it got to the point where it was like, I have to be gone and I have to sit in a room for meetings, barely stay awake. So I just love that now I pick and choose, and I get to be around new people all the time and make connections, which is so nice.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. So talking about making connections, you do have a component where you'll do workshops. So for people in town, is that something that you showcase on your social media so people know about that?
I do. So originally in my business, I did a lot more workshops that were kind of open to the public, and I still do some of that. I've done several at T.A. Lorton and Jenkins and Co. in town and some retail spaces, but for the most part, I've kind of gotten now to where I do most of my workshops are private. So someone calls me, wants to have a get together with their girlfriends, and I do a private workshop where they invite all the people. So that's what most of my workshops consist of now. I'm going to try to get back this fall to doing a few more that are open to the public because I get a lot of requests. A lot of people want to come to a workshop but don't want to put together the group to come, and they want to bring a few friends, but they don't want to create a larger event. So I'm going to put together a few workshops this fall that are more open to the public, and those have always been really well attended. So the workshops are a lot of fun, and you get to meet so many new people. And normally when I do them, I get a lot of repeat. So whenever I've done at T.A. Lorton, I've done a few a year, and usually the same people attend every year. So, and I try to mix it up. I do a lot of different types of workshops, but that way they can learn multiple new things and it changes. So,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very cool. Okay. Is there anything that you want to share that I haven't asked because your corporate background? Is there anything that you'd like people to know that I haven't asked?
I think if I were to give advice to someone else that was considering stepping out there and being more entrepreneurial, to just take a chance, especially, gratefully I'm a spouse who works and helps support my dreams in a financial way and also in an emotional way. But I think that people seem a little braver nowadays in their younger years. So I think that I would say give it a shot and try it at a younger age. I think it would be really fun to do that at a younger age where you have more flexibility and you could build it so much more, with time.
Okay, so Jennie, what would be some advice that you would have for people who are at maybe even mid-stage of their lives and just have a dream or a passion in their heart to follow? What would be some advice that you would give?
So I think that a lot of times when you've worked in a certain industry or in a corporate situation for a really long time, even if it's something you enjoy, if it's not your passion, I feel like, it's scary to think about taking a leap and starting a business that is within your passion at an older age, because I'm 48 and I was 42 when I started this. When I was younger, I never would have dreamed that I would do that at that age. But I think that some of the advice that I love and I see often for very successful people is they didn't start their most successful career until an older age. And I think that it's definitely never too late to do that. And I like hearing that because I have so many different things I love, and I don't ever want to think, I'm running out of time, because I feel like at any age, if you have something that you love enough to invest into it, jump in and do it. Why not?
Okay, I love that. I might also ask, you mentioned about the Volkswagen bus. Does that have an interesting story that goes with that?
Yes. So whenever I brought this idea up to my husband, there's a flower truck business that's in, I believe it's Nashville, and it's called Amelia's, and she has Volkswagen vehicles that she does her business out of. We talked about it, and he said, well, start looking and let's see what we can find. And so I found one. What she uses are more of a Volkswagen truck type situation. And so I was originally looking for that. And those are a little more rare. So I found one in North Carolina. And, we looked at all the pictures. And I was on the verge of just purchasing it online, not even going to look at it. And we were just going to have it shipped here. And he said, okay, give it one more try. Just look around one more time and see if you can't find anything local, because it would be so much easier and we could actually go look at it. And I said, okay, I'll look one more time. So I get online and I find on, I think it was Facebook Marketplace, I found one in Bentonville, Arkansas. And it was this Volkswagen bus. And I showed it to him and he goes, let's go. You just need to make a deal on that and let's go get it. So I messaged with the guy. We kind of work out the financial part. The next day, we go to Bentonville, Arkansas. We, bring both of our boys, drive up there to check it out. And this gentleman that owned it, him and his daughter did it as a project while she was in high school. So they bought this old Volkswagen bus, completely updated it. And it actually already had the middle seat taken out, which I would have had to do to put my flower rack in. It was perfect, and he just wasn't using it anymore. She left for college, and he said, I'm not really driving it. I'd love to sell it to somebody who really wants it. And so we went to his house. I drove it, and it was great. Perfect condition, perfect color. I didn't have to have it painted or anything. And we bought it on the spot, and I was going to drive it back to Tulsa. And my husband was like, are you kidding? I don't think it's safe. And so I said, okay, we'll drive it from Bentonville to Springdale, where my brother lives, and see how it goes. If it makes me nervous, then we'll figure something else out. So we drove it to his house on the highway, and every semi that went by practically blows you off the road. And so we get to his house, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about driving it that far. So we ended up having it towed back. But yeah, so it's fantastic, and I think I would keep the van forever, even if I retired from the business, because I just love it. And it stays in my garage, and my boys and I kind of joyride around in it sometimes for fun, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That is such a fun story. Facebook Marketplace for the win on that.
Yes,
I've been getting into
seriously.
Facebook Marketplace a lot lately, and so I found some great things. And it's funny when things are just meant to be yours, too.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. And I also, one comment, and I've not met your husband, but I feel like you got to marry somebody that supports your dreams. Mm-hmm. Because you've said a couple of times throughout about his support,
Yes.
and that should be noted, because you do have to have a spouse that is on board and supportive through life's
Yes.
changes and
Yes.
even business and everything else. But anyway, he sounds like a good one. I'll have to meet him sometime.
He is.
But
I've always had to drag him through my crazy ideas, but in time, I always convince him to go along. So
I love that. Good. Okay. So in wrapping up, my theme for this year is grow more in 2024. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering how you have grown either personally or professionally this year.
So I think that my biggest growth thought and idea for this year is, I really feel like I've settled into my business and started to really learn what I like, what I don't like, what I do and don't want to do in the future, where I want to grow my business. And so I think that just takes time, and it's more of a practice and see what feels right, what works, what doesn't, and being open to that, not expect everything to go perfectly. And I take things personally sometimes, like I want everything to go perfect for people. And so, I think that learning what leads to that and what doesn't, so I've kind of figured out where my business makes most sense. And I feel like that's been a real personal growth experience to figure out what makes sense for me, and, accepting the fact, because when you're in the corporate world for so long, it's not really up to you and it doesn't fully matter what you want. And I've had to really settle into the fact that it is up to me now, and I do get to decide. I don't have to go along and do things that don't necessarily make sense for my business. So it's nice to have that freedom and flexibility.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's great. That just comes with time,
Yes.
being able and it seems like you're a reflective person too. So kind of thinking about just how you've grown in ways that you want to grow and the direction that you want to take, because you're right, it is totally up to you.
Yes.
And so, and the sky's the limit for sure. So, well, thank you so much for visiting with me today. This has been a lot of fun, and I just appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've loved it.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate you being here. And don't forget to connect with me on social media. Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn are at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter is at Passion Sharing. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.